people talk about culture and they say it's the hardest thing and everything like that. But we actually built, a point of view about how to think about it as two companies are coming together and to work through it with the executives so that, there was intentional focus on culture. So, coming into the eye care organization, I felt like I was armed with the tools, that were needed.
Hello, Molly here on the Say It Skillfully podcast with leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, elite athletes, and professionals like you who open up about defining moments, what's been hard, and what they've learned in finding their true north and success on their terms. My guest today is a rare kind of leader, one who builds companies by putting people first, not as a strategy, but as a way of being. He's led organizations through extraordinary growth, scaling with purpose and humanity, while never losing sight of why the work matters. He goes from guiding leaders in the boardroom to coaching elite athletes on the slopes to founding nonprofits, organizations, to end homelessness in Calgary, Canada's third largest city. He grew one business from startup to a $2 billion market cap. And now he's tackling one of Canada's biggest challenges, access to healthcare, with a team on track to serve 1 million people this year. So from consulting partner to CEO, his North Star has always been helping others to thrive. Please welcome the inspiring CEO of Canada Diagnostic Centres, Darcy Verhun. Darcy, welcome to Say It Skillfully.
Thanks, Molly. That sounds way better than how I feel, but great. Thank you.
Well, you are a gem. We have to do a shout out to our dearest Marshall Goldsmith, because without Marshall, we would never have met. And Darcy, we had, I've seen your name floating around, but we only had the chance to meet, I don't know, within the last 9 months, maybe?
Yes. And we met in Florida a couple of months ago. And interestingly, when I traveled there for the 100 Coaches meeting, I had two things on my bucket list. One was to sit next to you, and the other was to sit next to John Strelecki. And lo and behold, my wish came true, because I was sandwiched between the two of you, and I felt like I won the lottery. And it was so inspiring to talk with you because I felt such high alignment.
Yeah, so thank you for that. It was really my biggest privilege ever. John was amazing too. And, I know quality when I see it. So I was just really overwhelmed by you. We have so much to talk about when it comes to the work part, because I'm really blown away. We are in a leadership crisis of epic proportion, and people like you, Darcy, are leading us out of that. But I do want folks to have the privilege of just getting to know you a little bit. And, I know you're not someone who kind of sort of talks about yourself a lot. So I appreciate your going there for us. But, please generously share your journey.
Grew up in Alberta, in Edmonton area. As a child, all of my family lived on the farm, except for, my family. So growing up, I had the benefit of what felt like two worlds, at the city and on summer holidays and the weekends on the farm. So I learned how to milk cows and drive tractor and, bale hay and everything else that you do on a farm. And also had the benefit of, like a city upbringing. So that was my early childhood. Coming out of high school, I like to build things and to obviously to learn. And I started out on a journey where I was going to become a welder. So I worked on boilers, on the drilling rigs, and found I wasn't strong enough. So went back to school and kind of grew a business career with initial focus on accounting and tax and audit, but had this desire to be part of a business, and then went back to grad school. Came out, became a management consultant for a number of years, and then over the last 15 or so years have been directly in business, and leading first an eye care company through a period of rapid growth over a decade, and then over the last handful of years now with a diagnostic imaging company.
Okay, we're going to get back to the business part. So I had no idea you grew up on a farm. Siblings, farm life is pretty early in the morning. I think it breeds a sense of work ethic, but tell us a bit about like the day as a kid who had farm duties.
Well, like again, this is weekends and summer holidays, so not every day, but out there for sure. My Uncle Danny and Auntie Virginia would be out milking cows at 4 or 5 in the morning, and when I got old enough, my uncle or grandpa would connect up the rake to the tractor, and they'd head off and let me go up and down the field when I think I was around 10 or so when I was old enough to, I could reach the pedals of the tractor. And yeah, and so like I'd say it was like a really great opportunity to learn about, you know, like 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 make and do with what you have, and about work ethic. Like my all of my family, I'd say kind of humble roots on one of the farms. We used to have to drive a mile to Uncle Anton's place to actually use the phone, and my great grandma, believe it or not, uh, you know, even into my teen years, like she had a dirt floor in her house, and in the wintertime would go out and grab like blocks of snow and melt them on the wood burning stove. And this is not that long ago, but the family all homesteaded. So my dad and my grandparents and uncles and aunts, they were like incredible workers, you know, just and made do with what they had.
Did your parents have expectations from a school, get good grades? I'm curious what, if any, encouragement, guidance they gave you.
Oh boy, the expectation really was to get a job. you know, really like that. I think that was the expectation. My reading was super important for my dad in particular. So wanted to ensure that I had that skill. And I'm going to say I didn't have it early on. So, you know, if, uh, we ended up with a rule in about grade 2 where every day when I came home, I had to sit on this green couch and read for a half hour before I got to do anything. And it was painful for me, I'm going to say. However, and I said to my dad, I'd never thank him, but I ultimately did. And I'd say today, I feel like a superpower for me is the ability to read. And I credit that to my dad. So.
Nice. Now, you've done some work coaching very elite athletes. Were you athletic?
I got the participation ribbon, I'd say, and but I love sports, and I love yeah, I love the feeling of pushing, and some of the sports that I really loved were soccer, windsurfing, skateboarding, and of course skiing. I always wanted to be a downhill ski racer. We couldn't afford it when I was young, but when I turned 18 or 19 and got my own job, I signed up for the ski team. So I signed up late in life as a ski racer, and raced till I was 28, and also became a high performance ski coach. So I'm a level 4 ski instructor, and I've coached ski racing on and off pretty much my whole life. My last athlete just made the Canadian national development team, and I coached her till she was 14, and she's now 21. So it's been 7 years since I last coached her, but she's continued to excel. So I did have one, like my last athlete still racing is doing quite well. So. Yeah.
That's amazing. So this is, there's a lot of folks who are amazing athletes, but they can't necessarily translate that to unleashing power in other athletes. So if you think about it, Darcy, what do you think has helped you to be such an effective coach?
Well, first thing that pops in my head is stories, and with the kids, I'm going to say I wasn't a conventional ski racing coach. I'd say the norm more is to focus on gaits and speed and repetition. And with my kids, I focus more on adaptation and being able to feel their skis. So as opposed to gates, we spent a lot of time in the back bowls or under the chairlift. Skiing moguls. One run in particular, HLH panoramas, a steep mogul run under the top of the world chair, and my kids, I call my kids, the kids that I was coaching. We would ski up and down, and when they got tired, I would tell them stories. And so I think the stories are it. And I did get a note from Zoe saying that she's thanking me. She actually thanked me for the stories and used them as inspiration, I think, for her journeys.
It's amazing. They're so fortunate. Okay, so I guess I didn't realize you were sort of accountant, businessy guy. So what's interesting is, did anyone talk about business at home? And then all of a sudden you go to school and you're kind of just taken by the shiny red ball of business?
No, no, actually, no. There wasn't a focus on business. It was important to well, honesty for sure was super important. I would say always trying your hardest was a big deal, and caring for others was something that I learned early on. If we were at a gas station and someone needed a ride or needed help, my parents always stepped up. So it seemed like wherever we were going was always an extra hour journey because we were taken somewhere, taking someone somewhere. And I'd say, growing up too, my parents' home was always open. So we invariably had different people living with us. We had people from Europe in our house, or family members as they were transitioning from the farm to the city. So our home was always open for other people too.
Yeah, that reminds me. I had stories of my mom's mom, who was living in Hong Kong, who just always had lunch, and she would serve lunch to maybe a dozen, 16 people every day. People just knew they could stop by for a bowl of noodles. And there's just something about that when you realize that's the generosity and the spirit of your family. I think that does make a lasting impression. Were there other mentors or people you wanted to emulate as a youngster?
A bunch of people. Nancy Green, of course. She's an Olympic gold medalist in skiing. No surprise. But just like like uh, like like she's still involved in the sport to this day, and it's not about the accolades or winning. It's about the joy of it, which is what. And I've had the opportunity to meet her a couple of times. I still have her autograph from when I very first met her. I got her to sign a napkin because I didn't have a piece of paper, and it says "Good luck, Darcy, Nancy Green," and she drew a little skier on it. And so that's one. And uh, boy, some family members for sure. One of my uncles and one of my aunts stood out. My auntie Diane, for just like her passion for life, and her like just her passion for life, I'd say was another one. And from an academic perspective, one of my profs, Professor Chris Jansen, took me under his wing, and it wasn't a straight line and perhaps a bit bumpy. He had a hard conversation with me in one of the classes I was taking with him, and I dropped his class after after the conversation, but it stuck with me and it really bugged me, and so I signed back up, and it had a redo with Chris, and he still that was early '80s, and he still mentors me to this day. He's retired, lives in Victoria, and he's just he doesn't say I should do things. He asks me really hard questions, and and it and I don't react. I'd say real quick, but they stay with me, these questions, and sooner or later it spurs something in me. And even going back to grad school, I'd say that was as a result of Professor Jansen, because it wasn't even in my radar, but he posed a question, and it got me thinking. And so yeah, it, yeah, he spurred me to be. I think he's seen something that I didn't see, and he's challenged me to reach for it. So
Wow, that's amazing. So what did you do your grad school work in? This is
it was in business, so an MBA.
nice. Nice. Okay, so then I'm curious how you crafted your journey after, just kind of going with the flow, getting big company jobs, or how did that work?
No, you know what? I applied for a couple of big companies coming out of grad school, and like I didn't seem to fit. That's what I'd say. So I ultimately wasn't successful, and I was disappointed. And at the same time, I reached out to one consulting firm. It was Clarkson Gordon at the time, and was just in the process of changing its name to Ernst and Young. So I joined Ernst and Young, and like I had it in my mind that being a management consultant could help accelerate my journey to become a bit like a business person, because I thought consulting years were like dog years, you know, where maybe every year consulting was like 3 years of regular work because of the
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
And you know what I loved, I loved the variety. I love challenge, like problem solving, love learning and growth. And so I stuck with it for actually quite a long time. And, uh, so I was a management consultant for about 25 years. Uh, and it was really interesting work where I got to work in Europe. I got to work in the US, all across Canada, a variety of industries, and on hard things like post-merger integration, strategy, org design, leadership. So it was very rewarding, and I quite enjoyed it. And yeah,
And so that's a long chunk of time, 2.5 decades. So what prompted the switch to move into companies?
well, I I um, I found that I was missing what was part of my vision from the very start, and that was actually to own it rather than to advise the people that owned it. And I bumped into an entrepreneur that was a handful of years into a journey, and we hit it off, and so I got an opportunity in a what was still mostly a startup eye care company that was focused on consolidation and growth, and really wanted to change how how eye care was being led across Canada. And I think ultimately, I think the vision for that company is probably the world. But so I got to participate in a team that had huge aspirations. And over the course of the decade that I was there, we grew and grew and grew, and it wasn't a straight line. And we found a way too to be true to core value, and we crafted it together. And it was called Enhancing Life, and that became our brand DNA or calling. And when we were faced with tough decisions, like we were able to stand back and say, well, does this sit well with our purpose? And it was a very incredible and inspiring journey. So I was blessed with that opportunity, and it created the opportunity for me to transition from a consultant or advisor into business.
That's amazing. It sounds like you snap into this, people right now it's a big thing. Purpose, having a purpose, culture I know is big for you, Darcy. Was that just a natural? Were you reading a lot of books? This is what I'm supposed to do, or was it just that feel of I know that if I relate well with these people and we're aligned, we'll win?
You know what? It was a bunch of things. In the last consulting organization I was part of, we got this idea about taking the concept of people and growth, and a big part of the business was focused on executive recruiting, and we thought there was a natural link to leadership. And like the search part of the business would place executives, and one of the most challenging things after an executive lands is the onboarding process. And if it's not done well, it can result in a fail. And when we looked at onboarding, we saw leadership, so like executive coaching. We saw org design or operating model. We saw culture. We saw post merger integration and strategy. We saw those things as being like they're the harder things for leaders to wrestle with. And so I'd spent, the last 5 years of my consulting life really focused on all things tied to leadership. And, I was doing executive coaching, and in post-merger integration, people talk about culture and they say it's the hardest thing and everything like that. But we actually built, a point of view about how to think about it as two companies are coming together, and to work through it with the executives so that, there was intentional focus on culture. So, coming into the eye care organization, I felt like I was armed with the tools, that were needed, to be able to not just like, um, uh, put in place process or policy. It's more about what do you do when you don't have process or policy, and that's culture. So, 65% of our workforce when I joined didn't actually have employment agreements, if you can imagine. So we the culture and the way we did things was uber important.
I love it. I love it. We learn the most from our failures and our struggles. Any defining moments that you care to share about, whoa, that didn't go the way it was supposed to, and learnings that you had?
Boy, I probably could write a book on failures. I'm probably expert at that. Um, you know, boy, one comes to mind, and maybe it's not a failure, but you know, at one point, there was a leader in one of our clinics that was like it was he was struggling, and he was close to retirement. It was a clinic we had acquired, and he was focused on the earn out portion of the acquisition. It was really important to him, and his health was struggling, and but the impact he was having on the clinic was quite negative, and everyone concluded it was time to make a change. And maybe this is not the best story from a failure perspective, but I'll share it anyways, because I think it's helpful in informing about how I think about things, and that is that not everything you're taught in business school or to be right is actually right. And so we flew out to meet with this leader, two of us, and we had a plan where we were going to meet in a coffee shop, and it was going to be kind of a shorter meeting. you know, we had the package, or it was going to be, we're going in a different direction. Thank you so much for all your contribution, and and this is the way we're going to part ways. But when we showed up, he said, "Well, you know, I'll meet you after the clinic day's over in the parking lot, and I can take you to the club." And we're like, "Well, that's not the coffee shop." And but but he was pretty set on this. And anyways, we meet him in the parking lot, and he says, "Well, we can drive together." And so everything was falling apart in our process. So we hop in the car, we're looking at each other. It was kind of awkward. We get to the club, and he's telling us about the history and everything. And he says, "Well, what would you like to eat?" And so it's completely coming unraveled. And anyway, we start to talking with him, and he says, it's my health is not good. I'm 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 struggling at work, and we're listening to him, and so then I said to him, I said, "Well, if the earnout, if you weren't focused on the earnout, how would you feel?" And he says, "Oh, I'd be so relieved." And I said, "Well, you know, what if we found a way to to pay your earnout?" And he said, "What?" And I said, "Well, what if you didn't have to do work another 9 months or 12, I forget how long it was. You didn't have to work the next year to achieve the earnout." And you know what? He started crying because it was that important to him. Uh, and so the two of us decided in the moment that we were going to honor the earnout, not hold him to it. We were going to help him transition, and then we started having this conversation around like his patience, the team, how to effectively transition. And it became a completely different conversation, and it was nowhere where either of us thought this was going. We drove back to the clinic after having a bite to eat. He hugged us both. That year at Christmas time, his wife actually wrote me a Christmas card thanking me for the impact that the company and we had on his life. And none of this was textbook. And so I'm going to say that like that moment and a whole bunch of others have caused me to, there's the textbook, there's your experience. And then there's just stand back for a second and just think, what's the right thing to do, even though it might be hard.
Wow. That is an out of body experience. I could totally see you thinking like, this is not plan A, B, or C.
It was not, and it was not at all.
That's amazing. That's putting people first. That's awesome. Darcy, let's fast forward because I'm in awe of this latest organization that you're with. And you kind of stepped into, wasn't particularly pretty situation. So take our listeners through this latest chapter, because I think there's a lot that you've been doing that's so helpful for folks.
Well, I joined a diagnostic imaging company that, it had, I guess, a 27 and a bit year history, from its inception. It was literally the first company in Canada to offer private MRI capability. And it was founded in large part on the premise of providing access to care. I'm not sure the US context, but in the Canadian context, we really have a crisis where it's hard to get access to care. And with population growth and just a whole bunch of things make it really tough. And so I joined shortly, a couple of years after, a private equity company invested. The organization continued to grow through acquisition. So it has 5 banners, so 5 different entities that all kind of come together. And it was a couple of years after COVID. So like a perfect storm, I'd say, in that, I'm not sure if even today that healthcare workers have fully healed from COVID. It was really hard on the frontline healthcare with doctors and nurses and technologists and even the staff. So hard, lots of challenge, lots of change with, adding other banners, a new investor with different expectations, and and misses relative to plan. So I entered a situation, and the team, quite frankly, wasn't happy because of some of the big changes that that we tried to roll out, and so there's kind of some negative energy culturally, and I say that, and at the same time recognizing that. I would say our team's unwavering commitment to patient care never changed. So the team continued to find a way, the patients were still first, however, from a organization perspective, it just a bunch of missteps and people not happy, so culture wasn't super positive. The plan, we were making misses, expectations were being missed. So I'd say trust at the board level, wasn't high. So there were a bunch of challenges. That's what I'd say when I entered. Yeah.
And, the reputationally, private equity doesn't necessarily come across as the most patient owner. So I'm curious your skillfulness in, because you're like, I don't know if you're like, I had nothing to lose. I'm just going to tell you what it's like here. And if you want to get it better and you want me to get it better, I can do this. So I'm really curious how you approached that, because that initial, opening of the chapter sets the tone for you being able to do what you think you need to do.
Well, I started on a Thursday, and my first board meeting was the following Monday. And I'd done my homework, and and like I say, when commitment to patient care and that passion, that's what I felt in the interview process. And I didn't feel the other challenges. So I'm going to say I was a little surprised, and I don't think I should have been. Like looking back, I shouldn't have been surprised. But over the weekend, like I had the I had the benefit of being able to talk to some trusted colleagues, a couple of the 100 coaches, and in my dialogue and then reflecting on the challenge, like with the support of some friends, I came up with this concept of like I knew culture needed to change. I knew that we need to find a way to provide access to more people, to help solve the crisis for care. And I knew that we had to manage our business better. And I thought, and again, with help of friends, I came up with this idea of, and one person in particular, Sean McLean, helped me on this concept of CDC, so Canada Diagnostic Centres. So, what if the first C stood for culture? What if the D stood for? I used dollars at first. Dollars was my first cut at it. One of our X-ray leads, Victoria, said to me, she said, "Well, dollars doesn't really work for us in healthcare. What if it was something to do with care? What if it was deliver care?" So, so she changed the dollars to deliver care. And then the last one, and we've just refined it, was initially cost excellence or operation excellence. So I took that concept into the board on my first board meeting, day 3 on Monday. And I said, this may seem a little bit cheesy, but this is how I'm thinking about it. And I want to try to find a way, because we had so many ideas, like, like so many things we want to do, and everyone's trying to make a difference. And I just wanted to narrow it. And so I said to the team, you know what, if you can't say that it does the first C and the first D, we probably shouldn't be doing it, and so that started to weed out some things, so that was, I'm going to say, super helpful. And the private equity company said to me, they said, well, it sounds like you think that culture needs to change. And I said, yeah, like we've got a lot of work to do on culture. And they said, well, it's going to take years, right? And I said, no, actually, no, it's not. And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, it's already started to change. And then they looked at me kind of surprised. And I said, well, it starts with me. And I said, I know from experience, the entire company is watching me. They're watching every move I make, and they're going to model my behavior. Like I know it's going to happen. And so I've started on Friday. Or on Thursday. I'm modeling the behavior I want to see. So I know culture is already changing, and it's going to change fast, because I'm going to be crystal clear, and I'm not going to waver from what's important. It's going to be CDC, culture, deliver care, and operation, the cost operations excellence. And I'm going to keep reinforcing that. And I'm going to do my best to support people to achieve that. Um, and that's the tack I took. And they said, well, what are some of the things you're going to focus in on? And I said, well, I'm going to start with smiling. They said, smiling. And I said, well, like think about the last time you went to the hospital or you went to your doctor. You walk into reception, and there's a high counter and maybe a glass, for protection from COVID, and the person will be, working away. They know, they know you're there. They know you're there,
They're not looking at you.
but they don't look up. And I said, well, when someone walks into one of our clinics, what I'm going to encourage, and I'm going to reward our team if they smile and say welcome. And that's a completely different behavior, and it's a completely different first step in the patient's interaction with us. And I believe that interaction ripples through the whole clinic, because I think everybody feels it. And if you think about when you come to see us, something's probably wrong. Like something's, because the doctor, your physician, has referred you to us for an ultrasound, an MRI, a mammo, a CT, bone density, like a whole bunch of things. So when you're coming in to see us, like you're probably not, you're anxious. you may not be at your best. And so that first interaction uh, is our ability to have a positive influence on the patient's healthcare journey. And so I said, we're going to focus on smiling, and we're also going to focus on the way that we interact. And our chief medical officer, Dr. Rob Davies, came up with this concept that we call the high five. And him and I talked about the importance of the way the radiologist connects with the team. And I shared some experience around something we'd implemented called the 10-10 commitment, where we'd asked our optometrist to come 10 minutes early and leave 10 minutes late, and just use that time to connect with the staff. Well, Dr. Davies took it and he said, look, I can find 5 minutes during the day when I can walk around and I can connect with my team, and I can say, how are you? I could say, hi. And maybe if I knew they did a great job, I could give them a high five, and not me to make it hokey, but to find a way where the doctor intentionally connects with the team. And you just think about how people feel when the senior most person, the doctor, takes the time to connect and make them feel like they matter. And so I said to the PE firm, smiling and asking our team how they are, that's going to be my primary focus. And they said, well, what about EBITDA? And I said, well, I inherited the budget. I said, I'm going to commit to you that this month's going to be better than last month, and the next month's going to be better than the month after that, and we're going to continue on that path. And I believe if we smile, we connect with the team, and we're going to build from there. But we're going to start with baby steps, and see how that goes. And EBITDA is going to be an output of our culture, the way we do things around here, our patient focus. And the next thing I said we're going to do is we're going to spend some time talking with the team to explore, what does good look like at CDC. So we went out, we talked to the team. I traveled around to all the clinics, and I asked people, like, what does good look like? How do we know? And so we built this thing we were calling the Clinic Excellence Index, and it doesn't include EBITDA. It includes the measures that are focused on increasing access to care and creating a remarkable experience, remarkable for our team and for our patients. And that's what we've been intent on measuring, rewarding, and my team finds ways to catch people doing good. you know,
I love it. How do you feel about the progress where you are?
I was going to say pumped. I'm ecstatic. we still got lots to do. No question about it. And but more and more, we find positive. And I'll just give you one example. And I was in Edmonton last week, and I was in one of the radiologist rooms. Radiologist rooms are dark with big high resolution screens, like a whole bunch of them, and technology for the images, and so the radiologist can report. And I'm in with the vice president Yuri in Edmonton, and we're meeting with Mahir, one of our doctors, and we're having a pretty serious conversation. It's end of the day, the clinic's closed, and we hear this at his door. Well, all the clinics kind of closed, and open we open the door, and there's Ben, our sonography coach. He's got his coat on, his backpack on, his little cap on, and he's smiling, and he says, I just wanted to. He said, I didn't realize you were in a meeting to the doctor, and he said, I just wanted to check in with you, before I went at home, make sure everything was good. And and when I think about that, like that, Ben showing the doctor he cares, and that's the high five in action. Like, he was intentional before he left the clinic to check in, And for me, that was like I got to see our culture in action, and felt so proud of that team and just the way they were. And yeah, we've got opportunities, to from an operations perspective where we can do things better. I'm uber confident when you have people like Yuri, Ben, Mahir on your team about the potential, because they've got it. They've got it.
So amazing. You go on and on about this. I'd love to jump to a little bit of just self-reflection because, the most successful leaders are self-aware. It's a process. I always say when you get more self-aware, you have to get more self-compassionate so you don't like gonna, skewer yourself. But I am curious along the way, if you step back, Darcy, what are some of the things that helped you develop your sense of self, helped you develop your leadership?
I attribute a lot of it to Marshall Goldsmith, and you know the his process around stakeholder centered coaching. Where a leader can only be as good, like your stakeholders are really representative of whether or not you're a good leader. So I've learned a lot from him, and I'd say one of the techniques that I use that I think is pretty helpful. It's called daily questions, and started this process back in February of 2020, and I don't do it all the time. Started in a bit of a group where I crafted some questions that I try to reflect on, every day. And they're small things, and I ask myself, did I try my best to do X? Like make a difference for someone else. Like little things, and I change them over time. And whether I give a red or a yellow or a green, that's not the point. It's that I've been intentional, and some of the things, I've taken some of the questions I've taken off because they become habit, and so I continue to evolve the questions, and it gives me an opportunity to kind of look in the mirror. I'd say, so that's been important, and then the whole concept of asking people, you know, um, for feedback and feed forward,
Yeah.
and being open to what you hear back.
I love that you learn it and you do it. It's very easy to read it, but not necessarily to do it, Darcy. So that's a really huge. And it's clear to me that you know that as a leader, you've got to model growth so that people realize that they have the opportunity to grow. So on that vein, any particular growth area, whether it's professional or personal right now that you have?
Well, the one thing that's read on my daily questions is to get on my bike. I'm still working on that. Right now, it's walking the dog as my alternative. I need to when for me, being on my bike signals that I've taken time to invest in my own health, and it creates space where if you do a bike ride, it gives you thinking time, and it helps your health too. So if I'm keeping care of myself, I'll be a lot better able to, uh, you know, be a leader where I'm helping other people. And the thing I'm working on is getting on my bike, and from a leadership perspective, for me, it's all about working together. So I'm trying to model that behavior.
Yeah, well, I love those wise words. Okay, it is a Say It Skillfully show. So is there a current conversation that's tough for you or one in the past that maybe you had that maybe it didn't go so well? I'd love to hear your Say It Skillfully scenario.
One thing comes to mind, and this is more of a number of years ago. We're all in meetings, and our workshops, and I know, uh, for me, a lot of time in the past, I would be thinking something and I wouldn't say it, or I'd be feeling something and I wouldn't say it. And there was one meeting in particular where we had a problem and we're working through it. We land on the solution, and it- we're we're ready to go. Okay, and and for some reason, I'm not sure why, and this is not brilliance on my part, but I decided before we concluded the meeting, I think there were 7 or 8 of us around the table. I said, you know what? Before we finish and we proceed to action, could we just do a quick roundtable where everyone takes a second and answers this question? Is there something you're thinking or feeling that you haven't said yet? That was the question. We went around the room, and by the time we got to the end, guess what? We were completely going down the wrong path. Like the solution that we needed to implement had nothing to do with where we landed. And we would have embarked on a whole series of actions that wouldn't have got the outcome we were hoping to get. But we hadn't created space in the meeting where everyone was using their voice. So I'd say to anybody, try it out at the end of a meeting, or where you've made a big decision. Before you move to go, just pause and create some space. Is there something you're thinking or feeling you haven't said?
Priceless. That's a question of the month, of the year. Okay, let's shift to some fun stuff. Hobbies, Darcy? What hobbies do you have?
Well, I like to read. Yeah, like to read would be probably my main hobby. And mountain biking, obviously, I like to do that too. So those would be two key hobbies.
Too. Okay, I think of extrovert, introvert as introvert derives energy from within. Extrovert derives energy externally. Which are you?
I'm an introvert. I my happy place is at the top of Lake Louise in a snowstorm about -15 with flat light. It's the opposite of kryptonite for me. Like when I'm up, it gives me energy. I know though that uh, I need to find a way where I can put myself into the space of my team. So I cheat a little. My daughter gave me a little dish that I put sour soothers in, and I walk around the office. I use it to walk around the office and say, how are you, and hand out candies. And I try to stay in the moment with everyone, and so that I actually have a chance to connect. So I cheat a little with candies, but anyways,
I love it.
I use that as a way to connect with people.
I love it. It's a great strategy. Darcy, what might people who might even know you super well, what might they find surprising about you?
Surprising about me. Well, that I love to drive in winter. But yeah, I don't know. Sorry, that most people don't like snowy and icy roads, but I kind of I like the challenge.
It's amazing. I love it. Okay, let's bring it to a wrap. Assuming where you are now, everything is how it is. Do you have a do-over or even a regret that you would share with us?
Um, yeah, if I had a do over, it would have been like invest more in invest more in learning, invest more in learning when I was younger. Like I think like in high school I took for granted, and I think if I had a do over, I would have taken the time and been more present, and I think that would help me have a bigger impact later, because I think it took me too long. I spent too much time getting to the point where where I'm intentional about my learning and growth.
Listen, better late than never. It's awesome. Proudest accomplishment, could be work, could be personal.
I'm not, this is not an accomplishment, but I'm most proud of my daughters and my wife. So very, very proud of them for sure. Uh, but proudest accomplishment is, again, I don't know if it's an accomplishment, but I'm really proud of all the people that I've got to work with over the years. Like, um, yeah, I could, when I just think back, I've been really fortunate for so many people that have, have touched me along the way, and I've got to be on the same team with. So I'm really grateful to the people that I've got to have the pleasure of working with and learn from.
That's awesome. Okay, rapid fire. If you had another profession in a future life, what would that be, Darcy?
I would be an artist.
Yay! I don't want to be creative genius. Okay, any nicknames you could share with us?
My grandfather called me Tarzan.
Tarzan, I love it.
Well, I invariably be swinging from the rafters in the barn and things like that. So he called me Tarzan.
Great. Favorite food or cuisine?
French fries and ice cream.
Power foods. I love it. You've shared so much with us. As you step back and think about what you shared, what's your top takeaway about your journey?
Uh, to be open and to not be afraid. So be yourself and be okay with that.
Yeah, I love that. And you have, we've covered a lot of ground. And what was it like for you to share your journey with us today, Darcy?
I was pretty scared coming into this, and I'm anxious now too, because I certainly I certainly don't want to come across unthoughtful.
I appreciate you, Darcy. Your humility, your presence, your intentionality, you're showing us a way, my friend, to lead by putting people first. And I want you to be very proud of that because that is oozing from every orifice of yours. You are part of the solution, my friend, and you're helping everyone feel safe and seen and heard in our true and very, very best selves. So if I can help you in any tiny way, my friend, I am here for you. And I hope that we'll have a chance to cross paths in the new year.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Okay, folks, it doesn't get any better. Okay, so Darcy's growing companies by growing people. He's using his voice skillfully. He's creating that collective communication where everyone can win. And I want to help you do the same. So please check out my sayitskillfully.com site. We have the Say It Skillfully 101 program and Marshall's and on my new #1 best-selling book, which I hope really helps you use your voice, okay? And my final thought, I wanted to take a quote from Darcy, and it's finding joy from doing simple things well over and over creates mastery and ultimately wins financially, and more importantly, creates a lasting impact and personal satisfaction. And that is a wrap, folks. Thank you for joining us. Please be part of the solution and kindly share this show. Amplify Darcy's voice. Reflect on your top takeaways, and know I am cheering for you to be who you are and say what needs to be said skillfully so that you and those around you create the shared reality that makes work and life so much better.
Say It Skillfully is finding your authentic voice and knowing how and when best to use it with confidence, clarity, and impact. Most communication and personal development preach playing the game so you win. Say It Skillfully teaches you how to change the game so relationships strengthen, performance improves, and everyone wins.